in theory.
It's Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. Since 2010, your weekly source for independent New York Red Bulls news and opinion. Now, from the Joe Goldstein studio, here's your host, Mark Fishkin.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Mark Fishkin here at Seeing Red as the preseason has officially begun with the Red Bulls going out against the powerhouse USL 1 Sarasota Paradise, a team that had not existed before this spring. The team went out and lost 3-1. Tonight on Seeing Red, we're going to talk about breaking news today, Thursday, incoming. New keeper coming to the Red Bulls. Our friend Tom Bogert reports they have a lot of keepers. The Red Bulls announced their full assistant coaches for the first team, so that's very exciting. We'll talk about that. We'll go and dig into the lineups against the powerhouse, Sarasota Paradise, playing the game of their lives. We have a chat with Christian Arnold of the New York Post and your emails. I'm Mark, so happy to be back with you this preseason. Before the storm, Mike Battista, Daniel Rebain, have you gotten the bread and milk yet? Have the bread and the milk been acquired?
Yeah, we've gotten all the stuff, so we're prepared.
You're worse than me, man. Like where you are, like that might be worse than what I'm getting. And yes, I got the bread, I got the milk, I got the Tylenol, I got the Gatorade. We're good.
I originally checked when I saw like a post on X, right? I saw something about winter storm next week. I was like, okay, let me check my weather out. First thing I see is 21 inches. I was like, I almost fell out of my chair. Right now, update is looks like 15 inches, but
okay.
I mean, still over a foot of snow. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I'm interested. I'm interested to see how much we actually get.
Well, wherever you are listening, if you're in the path of this storm, we hope that you stay safe. You've got your bread and your milk. You got a generator. You got a fireplace. You've got a way to get through it. The Red Bulls made some
also
news.
Getting buried.
Yes, for sure. The Red Bulls made some news earlier today, and that is U.S. men's national team keeper Ethan Horvath may be coming to the team. Our friend, once again, Tom Bogert, with the news. We heard during the season opening presser that New York was looking to fill out its goalkeeping situation, and bringing in a 30-year-old veteran like Horvath would do just that. Mike, what are your thoughts on Horvath? I'm going to pull up his stats while we talk.
Yeah, go ahead. It's funny because when I saw it, I got sent that by a Tampa Bay Rowdies fan, and he goes, "Hey, you could stop crying. Look, your team's doing good." And I look and I go, "What is this? Where this is not a South American or Central American or some random player. Like, what are we doing?" I will say I'm pretty happy with it. I've gotten talked down to by a bunch of people saying that he's gotten lucky, and that he only had one moment in his international career in the 2021 Cup, CONCACAF Nations League. It's not like you could do so much better than this. Is coasted, but I'm just like, you know what? That sounds like an MLS keeper to me. And our other options are John McCarthy and someone who's injured and children. So I mean, I'll take it. Overall, it's not a bad pickup considering he's not playing that much in England. He's going to get worked out here. He's only played a dozen games in 2 seasons, I think. So having a chance to play in MLS for a team that is going to play him consistently, because John McCarthy's not starting over him, it makes total sense to do that. I don't know if it's a loan or a pickup though. So which is it? We
don't know quite yet.
So if it's a loan, it makes a lot more sense to me because Cardiff can then say, yeah, we want him to get minutes. But if it's a pickup, I'm a bit more confused, but still fine with it.
Dan, thoughts on Horvath? Again, 6'4". He has 10 caps for the U.S. men's national team, and as Mike said, his shining moment was coming in off the bench during the 2021 CONCACAF Nations League final against Mexico, and absolutely saving the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of this move. I think when we were looking at the depth chart, right? Before this move happened, you have John McCarthy and Hayden Stokes. AJ Marcucci is obviously injured, won't be back till the summer. So you look at those two and you're like, there's no way that they can really go into the season like this unless they're expecting Hayden Stokes to play the full season, right? You're not going to go in expecting John McCarthy to play, 20 games for you this season. Like that would be I don't want to, play him down, but it's just like he's a backup goalkeeper in the league. You can't be starting him for a majority of games. So I like the pickup. I love the player. Everybody remembers that 2021 Nations League penalty save against Mexico. Only 30, so he's entering the prime of his career for a goalkeeper. So I believe this is a signing. I think he only had 1 year left on his contract with Cardiff anyway.
So this is a purchase in your mind?
I believe this is a purchase. So I think him coming in, it gives him the ability to, work his way back into the national team picture as well. Because, you know how the national team coaches love their domestic players. So if he performs well, like imagine he comes in, right, and you're heading into the World Cup in May, June. He could, if he's the best keeper in MLS heading into that, maybe he's
got a shot.
Maybe he gets a look. So I think this is a good move for Red Bull. They definitely needed a starter in this room. So I'm fine with the move. But the biggest question now is, right, there's 5 keepers on the roster. You look at this with AJ Marcucci's obviously injured, but then you look at Aiden Stokes,
who's 18.
Yep. Toby, and then you got John McCarthy, right? When AJ comes back, he's the backup. So the real question is, what do you do with John McCarthy or Aiden Stokes?
Red Bull too.
So,
Red Bull too.
Yeah, I think it's really that's great, Dan. I think it's really interesting. Obviously, New York went out last week and spent some of that sweet gam that they have been stockpiling to land 2 international roster spots for this year.
Yep.
With from the Seattle Sounders. Obviously, Ethan Horvath does not actually require an international spot as he's an American player. And so I think that there's certainly more to come. But as you can see, if you're watching at home or even on your phone, the idea that 6 keepers among 2 teams is just too many. Whether or not Tomas Hutt gets signed, he's definitely going to Montclair.
Yep.
And so you've got the teenage division here, and then you've got the grown-up division here. I wouldn't be so quick to lay out John McCarthy. I mean, he may have already played his one lone appearance for this side, did not play in the match against Sarasota at all. And so it really makes you wonder, what's the future here? Is McCarthy going to have a roster spot at the start of the season, bringing in a seasoned pro? And yes, you could make the argument that playing in England, playing in Scandinavia hasn't always been in form, but I think playing in the Prem or playing in the Championship and playing in MLS is slightly different. Any other thoughts here on Horvath before we move along?
I'll just say that I love when I hear people say that he's most remembered for the CONCACAF Nations League, and people keep telling me that the CONCACAF Nations League doesn't matter, so how are you remembering it? And the other thing is that look at it, with his whole career, I don't want to call him a journeyman because that's not, he's only, but at the same time, he's 30. He's never, except for since Bruges, he doesn't really stick around for clubs for long. Cardiff City, he's been on loan with Sheffield. Cardiff, he's was there for a season, played games, but he's on loan. Luton Town, like a season. Nottingham, like 3 seasons, sure, but only 6 games. It just seems like he has not been able to find himself. I'm surprised he even found himself on the national team in the Nations League to begin with, but we'll see what happens because, no offense, he seems like a perfect MLS keeper, and you could take that as a negative or a positive.
No, I think that's a positive, and I think exactly what the team needs right now. So, a steady hand, a pro, and yeah, again, he hasn't been locked in. But when you look at who's currently on the roster, especially since AJ's injured, you could do worse than an Ethan Horvath. So let's move on. The team this week also named in a big scoop by our friend Mike Battista, named the first team coaching staff for the year. The 2 names on the sides here are no surprises, as they are holdovers. Your friend and mine, Ibrahim Sagaya, who had so much success with Red Bulls 2 and was elevated for the first team under Sandro Schwartz, remains in that role. And Jeremy Proud, the 2-team goalkeeping coach, moved up in the middle of last year but it's former Metro Mike Sorber, pride of St. Louis, who comes to the Red Bulls and was a former national team teammate, I believe, of Michael Bradley. At the very least, played for his dad when he was in the role. Your thoughts on Sorber, Mike? You broke it. Well done.
Thank you. It's nice to have friends. It's funny because I DM'd Rebain when I heard this, and I go, I think we're cutting Sorber, and your response was, "Who's that?"
Oh boy!
And I
it's
think
today
that's funny because I kept asking people about him who aren't from St. Louis. And they go, "Who is this guy?" And they go, "He played 60 games for the national team. I don't know who this is." But the St. Louis people I talked to about him are very high on him because he was a St. Louis Gallagher coach, which is a very strong academy product. He was only there for a year, and then he spent a last year with St. Louis City SC. And whatever you want to say about St. Louis, they have a strong academy system, and he was only there for a year, but people really liked him. He's got a connection with Bradley. He was a assistant under him at the national team and at Toronto. And because of that,
Bob Bradley, to be clear.
Sorry. With Bob Bradley, he was an assistant under Bob Bradley on the national team side and at Toronto. And that's why he also knows Michael, because it was at the same time Michael was at Toronto. Mm-hmm. So it's very much seems like he is a good hand to have because he knows how to help develop players. And it seems like he's a very good leading presence. I'm not going to lie and say I know everything about him, but everyone who I've talked to that has experience with him likes him a lot. And they said the only reason he's here is because he didn't get the job in St. Louis as their new GM or head of sport, whatever they call it, whatever the same title. That's like 3 different names. Once he didn't get that, they knew he was out, and they're very annoyed by this. So good on us to get him.
Dan, any thoughts on Mike Sorber coming home?
Yeah, I think with Michael, he was always going to bring someone in that he had a connection with, relationship with. So bringing in Sorber, who he's played under with the national team or at Toronto, I think was a good deal. And as Michael Battista says, people love him at St. Louis and how he kind of coached and helped develop players in that system. So bringing him over alongside Ibrahim Sagai, who's, our version of him kind of, with the development of Red Bull 2 players, the academy guys. So I think having those 2 guys on the coaching staff is a big deal for Red Bull this year.
All right. Well, welcome, Mike Sorber. We're happy to have you back again. A Metro star from back in the day, played at Giant Stadium. And so having a
U.S. Open Cup champion.
U.S. Open Cup champion with?
The Chicago Fire in 2000.
Ugh. All right. The Red Bulls took the field at the IMG Academy in Bradenton earlier this week, and they got shown the door by the powerhouse Sarasota Paradise. The team played 2 completely different lineups in the different halves. They were down 2-0 at half, so you can say at least they drew the second half. And again, while the actual formations were not reported by the team, only the players here. This is an example of who actually took the field. And of course, for me, player 2, who's playing on the left back during the first half, is someone that I'm sure one of these guys.
Omar Valencia.
Thank you very much. It was actually answered on the screen. Omar Valencia. But again, both of the young players, it was actually Thomas Hutt who played in goal in the second half. So, going out with teams like this, it's your first time running out. You're not necessarily expecting a whole lot. I will tell you that Bradley said this today, actually, during his presser, that it wasn't the result that they wanted, which I think that's evident. A lot of ways for 8 days into preseason. He said he saw a lot of positives. We'll always be a group, he says, that's honest and real with ourselves in terms of how the results part of things. But we also understand that for where we are at this point, establishing ideas, continuing to build the base, and making sure that relationships, ideas, connections, all these things are still higher on the priority list. So it was good to get everyone 45 minutes, and they spend a good part of the morning going through things in a good way with the players and making sure they see the positives and understanding as they move along that they'll get better and better. So it was good to get 45 minutes. I don't think there's really much of anything to take away from our performance here. The lone goal was scored by Andy Rojas in the second half on an assist from Cade Cowell. There is not much photo evidence of this match actually have taken place, so we're just taking the word of the team. But again, the stakes will begin to get higher. A quick look at the preseason schedule this Saturday, assuming that the weather permitting, they'll take on St. Louis City, and then they come home for Hartford, and then they go off to Texas for the Torneo de Tejas before things start on the 21st of February. We're within a month. I mean, it's less than a month away now. Let's start with you, Dan. I mean, is there anything more that can be said about a preseason loss to a USL 1 team? I know it's your first time out as a team under Bradley. I know this is not exactly what he wanted to come home with.
No, you don't care about results in preseason, positive or negatively. But from all reports that I get from this game is that Sarasota was parking the bus and countering against Red Bull, and they caught him a couple times, one on a set piece as well. So I think that's what's going to happen with an MLS team versus a USL League One team. But it's actually kind of better to lose in preseason because then you can identify problems with what happened in that game and kind of rectify them before the season starts, right? And again, always for preseason, results for me never matter. You can always look at the Giants from last year. They went undefeated in preseason, and we all know what they did this year. So it's about kind of, building chemistry and building fitness. So as long as they're doing that, I don't care what the score is. So a good 45 for the guys on the field to get some legs under them, and game number 2 against Daniel Edelman and St. Louis City on what, Saturday? Yeah, Saturday.
Mike, any thoughts here about this preseason performance that relatively few people actually saw?
Yeah, I'm going to say that first off, congratulations Sarasota, because this is a team that was a USL League 2 team last 3 years. Decently competitive USL League 2 team, consistently winning their conference. Never won a natty, but someone that has been building towards this. Went from having 500 fans a game to now they broke 1,500 fans a game in their last season USL League 2. So honestly, very happy for them, especially for one guy in particular, Alex Sutton, who I heard was the goalkeeper in this game. Guy who played a lot of USL soccer in New York. He played for Manhattan SC. He went to Lafayette College. He was in MLS Next Pro last season with Carolina Core. Overall, someone who I'm very happy with, and he was one of their first signings. So fairly certain he was in goal for them. So good for them. This one does sting a little bit as a Red Bull fan. If you're not a sicko like me who likes lower league, you can go on about Alex Sutton. This does sting because unlike losing to, say, Hartford, if that happens, the problem with this is that Sarasota has not been playing soccer for long. They literally are just still signing players. They barely have a full roster, and they've barely been training. Even if you say, oh, well, we're playing our young kids. You know what our young kids are doing? They're in the Red Bull system. They're learning the Red Bull system. They should be ready to go out there and do well. Well, we have a 16-year-old in net. Why are you keep making excuses? I don't think it makes sense to say this doesn't matter when you're playing against a team where it's not that far off from a pickup at this point. So it just does bother me a little bit, and I'm hopeful that they look better against St. Louis and Hartford, especially before they go to the Texas tournament, the Tornadoes. But yeah, I have some icky feelings about this besides being very happy for Sarasota on a personal level.
Let me try to split the baby here between the two of you, because this either matters or it doesn't matter. It's either important or it's not important.
Nuance.
I like Daniel's point about the idea of this is Bradley's opportunity to see players that are giving their all, that are stepping up, that maybe have picked up the principles that he wants to put into place relatively quickly. Again, you learn a lot more from losing than you do from winning. And if they went and trucked Sarasota Paradise 6-0 because that's what you would expect, I'm not sure how much learning there would be. Yeah, I mean, it would feel good and it would feel that all's right in the world. I mean, this is, I think, in a lot of ways when the U.S. plays CONCACAF minnows and you're like, why can't you just drill them 9-0? Because that's like, why can't you beat them like the Faroe Islands get beat or San Marino? And the fact is that, soccer is hard and, a lot of people are getting up for this. I agree with you, Mike, 100% that this is a team of, I mean, they will be full-time professionals this year.
They will, yeah.
But also they're not there yet, and they also just started their preseason as well. You have to imagine the guys on this team are going to be talking about this game for the rest of their lives, taking down an MLS team even in the preseason. So again, you're playing kids in goal in both halves. You're playing players that are not accustomed to playing together, and I think it's all about the principles. So I think there's some good. I think there's some less good, and agreed that things will get better moving forward because I have no doubt that Bradley will use this performance to build on, and I think that's what you want to do for any preseason game. So, fair enough?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. When we're back on Seeing Red, we're going to talk to our friend Christian Arnold from the New York Post, making his Seeing Red debut, I think, and that's exciting stuff. We like debuts. And then we'll be back with email. The New York Soccer Roundup, preseason mode. Red Bulls down in Florida, getting ready to take on the mighty Sarasota Paradise tomorrow as we record. It's always a great moment where we're having a first-time guest on Seeing Red, and today is no different. Christian Arnold joins us from the New York Post. Christian, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. Appreciate you having me on. How's it going?
It's going all right. It's chilly. It's real cold. I want to give Red Bull fans and our listeners and viewers a little bit of a sense of who you are. You've been covering the team for a year now, a little something in there. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about you and how you got to the Post and your interest in the game.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you having me on again. Christian, I've been with the Post now for a little over 2 years. And we've been doing a bit more soccer coverage, obviously with the World Cup coming up, 2 impressive playoff runs by the Red Bull a couple of years ago. And then, of course, I have to mention the other club that occupies New York as well. They had a playoff run that we were on the trail with as well. And obviously, like I said, with the World Cup coming up, there's going to be extensive coverage from our end at the Post and the U.S. men's national team, and of course the 8 games, including the final at MetLife Stadium. So definitely we've seemed to take a bigger interest in covering both the local soccer clubs, and to be fair too, there's a lot of really interesting stories with both clubs that have been worth telling and exploring, and they've both made the last couple seasons fun. I've actually covered the Red Bulls before. Michael Lewis, who's obviously a well-known soccer writer in our area, I worked with him when he was running Big Apple Soccer.
Yes, indeed.
Yep, it was a long time ago. I was a bit younger. The spirit wasn't as full, and doing some soccer coverage on and off for a couple different outlets for years. I've also covered the NHL, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA. Pretty much, I think every team in New York. I have covered at least one game at this point.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. So I've been around the block a few times, and of course the Red Bulls and NYCFC, and actually covered the New York Cosmos too when they came back in 2013, I believe that was. So
and now they're back again.
So there's more opportunities to cover them as well. So I've certainly seen my fair share of soccer and basically every other sport in the city.
Well, I know that Red Bull fans definitely appreciate the coverage coming from the Post. Let's talk about the team. I mean, Julian de Guzman was kind of upfront about saying he wanted to go into the start of preseason with his full roster. We still have the 2 DPs that we had at the end of last season. I think Red Bull fans, I mean, I know that Red Bull fans watching Bradley's presser were just chomping at the bit to really get at when is more help coming. And the team's been in Florida for a few days. Again, they have their first match tomorrow, Wednesday, but there's really no sign of another DP. They did make some news by acquiring some international slots, but it's been really quiet on the rumor mill. What do you think what's going on with this team right now?
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting couple weeks, and I think that those promises made by Julian in, I want to say that was September, October, when he was first introduced in his new role, head of sport, and since then, it's like you said, they've brought in Kate Colwell, who is obviously, a somewhat well-known U.S. men's national team player. A lot of intrigue around him, I think, just from the standpoint of a lot of the conversation revolving around his interest in getting back into the men's national team roster conversation for the World Cup in June.
Yeah.
But it really does seem like it's been very quiet. And, being in Julian's position, and, I think he kind of spoke a little bit too about the goaltending situation also being figured out a couple of weeks ago when they introduced Michael Bradley, and he said that seemed like that was a few days away. And it seems like maybe they had a plan in place and that sort of fell through. I know there were a couple rumors that were buzzing around social media, but they never really came to fruition. And right now it just seems like there's no buzz outside of what they've already done. And I think that has frustrated a lot of Red Bull fans. Obviously you were very tight with the community, and you know how frustrated they are after last season. And I think the promises made in that press conference last year when Julian was first introduced, I got the sense it was, we're excited to hear this, but we've heard this before, right? I think that's kind of been the process with Red Bull as an organization when it comes to the New York club, is that there are a lot of promises made and there's a lot of big talk, and then the execution of that plan is never necessarily what people envision, right? And it hasn't been that way for quite some time, it seems like. Yeah. And I think that's really starting to come to a head a little bit after the last season not making the playoffs this year, essentially going into the first playoff game, which will be the 21st, which you mentioned. Right now as we're recording this, we're a day away. It doesn't seem like that third DP slot is going to be filled in the next 24 hours or whatever it'll be. And two, I think the under 22 slots too that they have to fill aren't going to be filled in that time period either. It's an interesting position. I also do want to be a little cautious in criticizing Julian and Michael at this point, just because, I think that these are two guys that are getting their feet under themselves in terms of what they're doing with the first team. Obviously Julian's been here with the organization now for a little bit, and obviously he took over the role late last year, but he's had some time, and I get that. But it takes time to build an organization. It takes time to put your plan into place. So I want to give him a little more runway to work with, because he's still new. I don't want to hold him to the same standards necessarily as the previous administration, just because I don't think that's a fair. I don't think that's necessarily maybe as fair, because maybe there is something up his sleeve. Maybe there is something in the works, or maybe there were things that they were working on that just didn't come to fruition. And there is a plan in place, and we're just not seeing the bigger picture at the moment. But right now, I do understand that the frustration is there, and there's sort of a curiosity to what is playing out behind the scenes with how this roster construction is going into 2026.
I think one of the biggest challenges is when you basically are calling for a tear down. And again, team missed the playoffs for the first time in 15 years. There's an argument to be made that you blow it up and you start from scratch.
Right.
But when long time, and this is a constant refrain from Red Bull fans, I believe, is there are plenty of people that will show up on the 28th against, I guess it's the Revs for the home opener, and they won't recognize more than half the team. And in a world where Lewis Morgan's gone, and Daniel Edelman has been moved to St. Louis, and Peter Stroud has moved on, and Sean Nealis, who goes back to pre-COVID with the team,
right,
have moved on. And that's okay as long as you're bringing in players that are enticing and exciting and are additive. And I think for Red Bull fans, I mean, the easiest thing to note is Not that Volodya won't be, amazing to watch as a new center back, or Cade Cowell up front, or Justin Che, but going back to the early days of Metro, the idea of, quote, knocking someone's socks off with a player acquisition is something that I believe the fans of the team actually deserve. And to date, it's been the sound of one hand clapping, and it's frustrating.
No, and I certainly understand that. That's not to say I'm not understanding of the frustration. And look, and I mean, you look at last season and the way things played out, it wasn't acceptable. And you look at the way that, Julian and even Michael Bradley talked during the last press conference as well. There is a sense of, hey, our expectation is now we're going back to the playoffs. That's the
right. That is the baseline.
Yes. And then you look at what they're doing and you go, okay, but how are you meeting that expectation that you're setting yourself? So you're essentially setting yourself up to be criticized at this point. And it's a fair question, because right now it just doesn't seem like there is an answer to that, right? Like even the goaltending situation where, it seemed like we were days away from hearing some sort of announcement about, hey, this guy's coming in, or we're gonna go this route, kind of just faded away. And that's added to that frustration, added to that confusion of what this club is doing. Now, again, granted, maybe there is something up their sleeve, and maybe it just takes a little more time to kind of go through. But also, too, you look at some of the moves that this club has made, and I think there is a real interesting sense too that there's going to be a lot of spots up for competition in terms of just some of those Red Bull 2 players that are going to come up and just, I think, slot right into the part of the roster, or into the starting 11, or into roster spots on the first team. And kind of going back to your point, as you were saying before, of just, all right, looking in the roster, going, okay, who is this guy? It almost reminds me a little bit of like the early mid 2000s New York Islanders in the NHL. I grew up a big Islander fan, and I think half the time, outside of Alexei Yashin and Michael Pekka in 2001 through 2003 or whatever it was, Yashin was there for a little longer. But you go, I don't know who half of these guys are, and you're like, someone get me a Bridgeport Sound Tigers roster, because half of these guys are playing the minors.
Right, that's right. Well, and when you're pledging youth, right, and you're pledging, we're going to be a youth developer, and yes, again, 2 team won the league title. It was a fantastic night in Harrison. It helped really deliver Bradley to this spot where he was elevated for the first team. But there's a reason that these guys are playing on the 2 team. And MLS Next Pro is not the big league. And I think fans will sustain through some growing pains in this year, for sure. But I think the larger question is, you were stockpiling GAM for most of the preseasons, sending your prized possessions away, and then you make this investment in international slots. I just think, given the fact that the team is training, given the fact, again, that they kick off preseason, I'll pop up the preseason schedule here, right? They're taking on a lower level USL team, and then they'll come home to play frigid Hartford, and then they go off to Dallas for the rest of the preseason. And again, it all gets going a month from tomorrow. The season kicks off, so you're going to see pretty quickly, I think, what you have and how Bradley wants to play. I think, again, it's just fans are expecting something. And again, the acquisitions they've made, while role players for sure, if you're talking about a DP spot that has been opened on the team for a long time, right, and you talk about Timo Werner going to San Jose, of all places, for $4 million, it really speaks to the challenges that Werner had coming into the Red Bull organization in the U.S. Because from what we understood at the time, during the summer transfer window, Werner apparently wanted $10 million. And I believe that Jochen Schneider was offering something like what San Jose is paying him. It's, again, very, very strange.
Right.
Nevertheless, so where is your optimism level gauge right now going into their first preseason match tomorrow?
I think it's sort of the cautious middle ground, right? I think that Michael Bradley, being as excited as he is, having the pedigree that he has as a player, someone that has been noted over and over again as basically an extra coach on the pitch during his playing days, and now going into the coaching ranks, I think that injects a certain level of new life and new blood into the organization. In terms of just the excitement, in terms of the change to the system a little bit, there has been constant talk of sort of this new look Red Bull system that kind of keeps sort of the traditional, transition, aggressive, Red Bull style, with kind of adding a bit of new flair to it and allowing more creativity and allowing more offensive opportunity. And I think that's something that I think a lot of guys will appreciate, especially with this being a younger team. And the players that they brought in, they've kind of been part of that new look Red Bull identity that I think that Julian and Michael are trying to build here. And
Sure.
so it certainly fits that style. But at the same time too, you look at, like we've been saying this whole time, you look at the offseason additions outside of that, and it just really hasn't moved the needle in terms of what it's going to take when you have so many teams around you getting better. Right. This is not going to be an easy schedule or easy season for them with so many teams around them getting better. You also look at some losses, and it is a tough pill to swallow. Lewis Morgan, who is as deep a part of the Red Bull organization, I think, at this point, or was at this point, as any guy in that roster, who really played a huge role in that run to the MLS Cup final a couple of years ago. Guys like Sean Nealis, who have been here forever, right? They are not only just Red Bull through and through, but they are New York, New Jersey,
Yes.
Soccer royalty.
Yes.
And so, losing some of that experience too, I think is kind of interesting. And so, I'm excited to see what Michael Bradley can do in terms of the style and the formation and kind of the way he approaches everything on the pitch and kind of gets these guys motivated. But at the same time, I think you look at the roster construction, you just kind of go, there's still a little bit to be desired here. And I'm just not sure it's enough to compete with the Eastern Conference. And, I think also this also proves to be a pretty pivotal year for Major League Soccer as a whole, with it being really the last time we're going to see this, this February through November or October schedule, before we make the switch over to the new schedule that puts everyone on par with the European leagues and FIFA.
Yeah.
And obviously with it being a World Cup year, I think the momentum, there's a lot of opportunities, not just on the pitch in terms of building a successful team on the field, but also there's a lot of opportunities off the field with the World Cup being in New York, and the opportunities and the interest that the sport is going to have. And, I think it's kind of this question too of where is soccer, where are the two New York teams headed in terms of their visibility, right? Where they play in the biggest media market in the world. And they also play in the most crowded sports market in the world with
Yep.
so many teams there that this is the year that you really want to put your best foot forward and have a competitive team on the field, because this is when everyone's going to be paying attention, right? You have to imagine after the World Cup, people are going to want to go out to see more games. People are going to take more interest. And when you have a local club that's doing well and has a someone that on the roster that excites people, you're going to be able to generate a lot more buzz and a lot more interest and a lot more impactful product that correlates not just on the field but on the business side as well. And it's certainly an interesting mix. I like I said, I think it's a cautious middle ground right now, because I want to see what they do. I don't want to come out just yet, but it's an interesting spot.
Well, until they kick a ball, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no one's clinched a playoff spot for 2026, so there's definitely room. It really, just to build on the point that you made, New York is, I think, truly in 2026 starting to echo the great soccer markets of the world when you consider Brooklyn FC is starting at Coney Island this year. The New York Cosmos are starting in Paterson, New Jersey. Westchester SC is in their second season in Mount Vernon. And then you've got Gotham, defending women's champion, and there's a women's team at Brooklyn as well. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, that's a lot of six, top team level teams all in the New York market. I think all incredibly eager to capitalize on the World Cup. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens. One last thing before I let you go. Brazil has chosen the Red Bulls to be completed training center as their home base for this summer. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a credit to at least what they're building there over in Morristown. It looks like a beautiful facility. I mean, you've seen the renderings. I'm sure all the Red Bull fans watching and listening have seen the renderings. It looks like a beautiful facility, on par with with some of the pro teams in this area, not just soccer, but major league, Major League Baseball, NFL, things like that. Also, funny enough, I think they're less than a couple miles down the road from the Jets facility. Ironically enough. So, but I think it's a true testament. And I think, again, it's a nod to what Red Bull is trying to do a little bit here in New York with a facility like that. And, you can't help but go, hey, that is a great pitch to when you're trying to convince players to come over here to North America and to play for the Red Bull. That's a great sticking point. That's a great selling point. You talk a lot about, a lot of these other teams in the area too, or even, I think a better example is WNBA. What did you start to see when teams started becoming these big major powerhouses, the Las Vegas, New York Liberty? They have incredible facilities that put them on par or even above some of the best NBA teams or teams in the NBA. And I think when you look at a facility like what the Red Bull are building, that's a positive thing. That's a pretty good thing. It's a good chip to have in your corner.
For better or worse, it should certainly dispel any continuing rumors that Red Bull is looking to get out and move on from the project. Christian Arnold covers soccer and all sports at the New York Post. Christian, where can folks find you on the internet?
I'm at still on Twitter at C_Arnold01. And of course at the New York Post, just search my name, or most of the soccer articles are usually by me. So you can find me there as well at mypost.com/sports.
Well, we look forward to seeing and reading you this year and beyond. So thanks so much for jumping on Seeing Red, sir.
Not a problem. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We've got your emails coming up after this short break, so please stay with us. It's so good. It's so good. It means the season's coming when you hear that music. You can write us anytime at seeingredny@gmail.com. We get emails all the time, even in preseason, and I'm very pleased to read a couple of them to you right now. One is from our friend Connor Naspo, who writes, and this is an interesting one, and the boys are seeing this for the first time. Mark and gents, I got to start off by saying I'm sad to see Edelman leaving. He was one of my favorite players, and it stinks to see him go. On to my main point for emailing. Not that you need to have one. I have a sports radio show at Montclair State, and during my show, someone called in and brought up a question that got me thinking. Why don't we have more Jersey teams? The only professional team is the Devils. I would love to have more teams for Jersey, and I feel like we definitely get overlooked. Sports in general is huge, and in the metropolitan area, why not have New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia teams? To be clear, Connor, Philadelphia is not in the New York metropolitan area. New York has, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, New York has two teams for every sport. Why not take one of them and move them to Jersey? I think the Red Bulls would fit perfectly, and we already are playing in Harrison, and most of the people I know in Jersey are Red Bull fans. My second question is, if a team were to move to Jersey, would you abandon the team that you're supporting and switch fandom to the Jersey team? Have a great week, and let's go Red Bulls. Who wants to yes, Dan's got his finger up first.
There's actually a video on YouTube about this that I watched over the fall. It's basically lays out why there's only one team, or there was two when the Nets were here, right? And then they moved to Brooklyn. So basically when New Jersey was developing, there's not really a major city per se other than possibly Newark, but it's not like Philadelphia, it's not like New York City, right? So that's kind of the crux of the situation there is there's no real overarching major city that was developing in the 1800s or the 1900s, right? So that's probably the big reason. And obviously all the New York teams were already kind of developing, right? You had the Yankees, you had the Giants, you had the Jets when they came. So all these teams were already kind of in the New York City area when when New Jersey was still kind of building its way up. So that's probably the main reason. And if a team from New York moved to New Jersey, would I flip? Like, well, the teams that I support would probably be the ones that would move to New Jersey. So I would say no, I'd stay with them just because. Other than the Jets, I wouldn't be a Jet fan.
You mean? And to be clear, I mean, Connor is saying if they change their name, I guess.
Oh, to New Jersey? Yeah, I'm a New Jersey Devils fan. So I live in New York. So,
Mike Battista, your thoughts, sir?
Yeah. Shout out Connor, host of Lifting the Trophy, I believe on Sundays at Montclair. I think I've heard his show once or twice because I used to cover hockey at Montclair, so I had read stuff there. No, listen, it's I also saw that video my YouTube recommended, and it's in my watch later.
It actually is a good video.
I also saw that video and enjoyed it immensely.
That video. The problem is that I look at New Jersey and look, the simple answer is that you have the New York at one end, you have Philly at the other end. If you go to Wildwood, you get the mixture of both. There's a reason why you see Eagles flags in South Jersey. Boom. And you see, if you're in New York, you see the Giants and the Jets. We don't have our own identity. I'm happy that when you have things like the Trenton Thunder or the ECHL now is a new hockey team.
Hey, they're coming back. Yeah,
they're coming. And I'm happy about that stuff. The problem will always be that New Jersey is not a major market. New York is a major market. Philadelphia is a major market. We are the stepbrother. Like we are the armpit of America, and we take pride in that. But we don't have enough saturation to make our own waves. The New Jersey Devils, for as much as I like them as an organization, their fans are dirtbags. But Rebain. But there's a reason why the Rangers are the ones who get invited to Winter Classics over and over again. And you guys just played your first outdoor game this past year. There's a reason why the Islanders get more coverage.
That was our second.
Say again? Yeah, you played at Yankee Stadium. Who also played at Yankee Stadium? You got back by the Rangers. That's the thing, though.
It's focus.
But I'm saying here is that the New Jersey's not going to carry itself. It always has to carry itself off of Philadelphia, or it has to carry itself off of New York. Yeah. And they're good enough that Gotham even dropped us from their name. So where did Gotham have its parade? They had it in New York both times. They don't have it in New Jersey. The only time the Giants held a parade in New Jersey is when the mayor of New York wouldn't let them have a Super Bowl parade because they weren't a New York team. That's the only time they had a parade in New Jersey.
I know I was there for that.
There's not enough fans. It's basically there's a small window of fans, and that's all North Jersey. And even then, they're split with New York teams. So it's just not enough people to support just a specific New Jersey team.
Here's my take. When we say the New Jersey Devils are New Jersey's team, they're really not New Jersey's team. They're North Jersey's team. Because people in South Jersey do not root for the New Jersey Devils. They root for Philadelphia teams, which is fine. The point is that naming a team after New Jersey, all it does, it gives New York fans a reason to stop supporting. And if you're on social media, Connor, which I'm sure you are, most of the times where someone talks about the Red Bulls, there will inevitably be someone, whether they are an NYC fan or they are a New Jersey, born and raised denizen, saying, why can't the team be the New Jersey Red Bulls? Recently reported or shared that something like 70% of the team's fan base or 70% of the team's season ticket base comes from the state of New Jersey. I don't know any business that would straight up say, we're gonna basically change our identity and cut off 30% of our fan base to annoy them in any way. You can make the argument, well, if you call them New Jersey or North Jersey, because that's really who they represent, right, that you're going to gain more fans. I feel for you guys. I grew up in Westchester County. I've been living in New Jersey for 23 something years. I love it here. I'm very happy. But the fact of the matter is The market is it's the New York metropolitan area, and the team is named after the New York metropolitan area, the Metro. Mike?
There's a reason why the Cosmos are not the New Jersey Cosmos.
Yes.
They would literally drop the name New York and just call themselves Cosmos
Which they did.
rather than limit themselves to just the Garden State.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
marketing at the end of the day.
It is marketing, yes.
Yep.
So actually, New Jersey does have a second pro team now. It's the Cosmos.
It's the New York Cosmos. Thank you so much for your note, Connor, and keep up the radio show. And we're really
keep it
glad
up.
you continue to write in, and it's all good. Here's an email from Dan McDevitt, who admits that this is a bit of a novel, and I apologize for him, and I apologize. No problem, Dan. Apologies up front. This will be a big long. I think the personnel moves the team has made this offseason are promising, but not yet enough to make them a contender for anything. I suspect there are more decisions coming, or at least things they want to do, but are saddled by some bad contracts. I'd be surprised if they're not trying to move Cam Harper, who did not play in the game against Sarasota. He really brings some of the unique skills to the team when healthy, but he isn't more than he is. And you can't hold a roster spot for a guy who's 50-50 to play each match. Additionally, players like Yengar, Carmona, and Goma have shown their skill isn't up to the level of play in MLS and should be moved if possible. I'm concerned with the focus on players from the two team. It's nice that they won the Next Pro Championship last year, but the gap in the level of play between that league and MLS is so large, it's no guarantee that they can compete at the top tier. We've seen several players who dominated in the lower levels, but were unable to make an impact in MLS, especially in the attack. Tom Barlow, the aforementioned Carmona, and even Julian Hall come to mind. I know Hall is still young and may eventually come good, but he was not ready for MLS when they promoted him. I'm tired of seeing the same scenario play out time and again, in which a young player tears it up in the USL or Next Pro, is promoted too early, and can't even get on the field or stay healthy once they're with the senior team, and eventually move on without having an impact. And that brings me to what, for me, is the most important question right now. Do you have a sense of whether de Guzman and Bradley will be allowed to build the team as they see fit? I see one of the key problems over the years is that the roster is controlled by people in Europe who still to this day don't grasp what it is to win in MLS. The only competitive roster the Red Bulls have had was the one that Curtis and Marsh put together when Jesse was hired. That's a take. The hit rate for acquisitions since they left isn't great. That is absolutely true. Bradley and de Guzman know the league, but if Salzburg keeps sending them players who aren't good enough for MLS, it's not going to matter. Finally, I'd like to say a word of thanks to Daniel Edelman. From the day he stepped on the pitch and got his first red card against Barcelona, he's perfectly played the role Red Bulls wanted from him. He was a dominating, purely defensive mid who could break up attacks, track back, make lung-busting runs, and tackle cleanly to prevent goals. He also drew a crazy number of fouls. It's not his fault that when the team realized they needed their number 6 to contribute to the attack, he didn't have that skill after they never trained him for him that. He tried, though, and occasionally was able to make good passes spring in attack. His assist to Hall in the Leagues Cup comes to mind. I also maintain that leaving him off the 24 Olympic team was stupid. Thanks for anything, Danny, and best in luck with your career. That's a terrific email. Who wants to start off with this? Dan, once again, really raising his hand, my friend.
Yeah, I think to touch on, if Bradley and de Guzman are going to be able to build a team the way they want, they've already started that. I mean, we've seen that with them getting guys out of here that just kind of don't either fit their system or they just feel like it's time to move on. And, they brought in some guys that seem to fit Michael Bradley's system, like a Cade Cowell, a Justin Shea. They just brought in Ethan Horvath and goal. I've heard rumblings that they're looking for another winger, and they're potentially gonna bring in another winger for the starting 11. So we'll see if that ever develops. But yeah, I think they're building the team the way they want to, and it's just year one, so maybe it doesn't translate to winning right away, but eventually, once they get their team, underneath them, this should be a good team going forward from year 2, year 3, year 4, right? So we'll just see how these decisions come through. And what else? What was the second part?
Just that the only competitive team that the team has ever put together was Jesse Marsh and Ollie Curtis's teams.
I don't agree with that, but that's his opinion.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. The Jesse Marsh the dad's not coming back with the cigarettes and milk. I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of these conversations. He went off to the land of Canada. Look, can you convince me that this is not de Guzman's team and this is Europe making the change, making the calls?
I don't think so.
Because wait, so is it de Guzman's team or is it Europe's team?
I think it's de Guzman's team.
I think it's de Guzman's team. Look, I'm not going to say that I follow Toronto / Canada's youth development system, but it feels like he was big with the youth players up there, like development of players up there. So, like, he's just doing more of that. So to hear, Red Bull doesn't know how to do this, they need de Guzman and Bradley to build out this team. Build it out the same exact way, because it feels like both of them are focused on youth players. Bradley was just a youth team coach. So if he's building out a team, he's going to bring in young players. Mm-hmm. Bradley ain't going to bring in unks. So I don't know like what you want here. If you wanted a team like that, you pick the wrong guys to build out your team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Dan, but I don't think that this is a situation that's coming from Salzburg necessarily. I think both de Guzman and Bradley have been thoroughly drenched in Red Bull, and they are building a team that's young and is going to attack and press. I think we're going to see a team that's pressing a whole lot more this year than they did for 2 years under Sandro Schwartz.
Oh, most
and when you look at a team that gets beat on the counter for a team that's bunkering against Sarasota, well, that's a high pressing team, right? Mm-hmm. That's a team that's going to be pushed up all the way and that's going to be susceptible to counterattacks, which is a kind of a mark of Red Bull energy drink soccer over the years. So you can lament that, and I think that is absolutely acceptable to say, I wish they wouldn't do that. I'm tired of seeing Red Bull 2 players getting called up, and I think that point is somewhat valid. I think it's going to be another year before the team can completely be Bradley's and de Guzman's, because they do have some long-term contracts. And we've talked about in previous episodes the idea that there are 421-year-old wingers, midfielders on this team. There are literally, I think there are 10 or 12 guys, the core of the team, that are all born within 18 months of each other, and most of them play midfield. And so not all of these guys are going to be able to play. They're not all going to get playing time. And again, I do want to just bring the note out that they went and acquired 2 international spots because they were intending to bring in more players, as much as Bradley, deflected today on the call. So we're always looking to bring in more players on the team. And of course, they have a third DP spot that they can use. And they used it. Yeah, Mike.
So real quick, I'm going to side tangent this, and you can reel me back, but just let me say this.
Yes, you may.
You guys know I rate Frontier Blue, so I've been having to do some stuff on the other team. And I've had to look at NYCFC 2 recently. NYCFC 2, their top, they've played for 4 years. Their Golden Boot winner for their first 3 years have all left the team. Like, they always go to other teams in USL or things like that.
They're not promoted.
They're not promoted. The only ones that ever stuck around, John Dennis, unfortunately, was sick. Like, he developed cancer, but like that's another point. Like, the only reason, like, Seymour Reed is the only one that they've signed recently, and he was their leading goal scorer last year. The other two, MD Myers and Taylor Calera, they're all in USL and other teams. So if you don't want Red Bull to be developing players, like, that's what's going to happen. Your top goal scorers from like the little leagues, like MLS Next Pro, they don't make their break, and then we just see them off. We don't get guys to come up here, and we just see what happens with the stagnation of like our youth development system. So I don't think that's really something you want either.
So you're saying it's important to promote players from the second team to the first team.
100%.
That's the mark of a healthy academy and a healthy development system.
And it's also a healthy development system to see some of them fail, because sometimes guys don't work out. Yeah. But you got to try.
Yeah, Dan.
I remembered the other point from the question is he was talking about Cam Harper being potentially moved or someone else, like the wingers, basically. Serge Goma's not down in Florida, I believe. He's up here. I don't know if anything going on behind the scenes on a move or if he's, dealing with a nagging injury again. But Dennis Gengar didn't play as well.
Yeah.
So I think, some of these wingers that are kind of looked at as potentially fat on the roster are still looking to get moved off the team to free up some of these senior and other supplemental spots for other players coming in.
Okay. That's a good point. Before we ended the show this week, I have to take umbrage at a comment that Mr. Battista made during the last show.
Oh, no.
When
God.
he called Apple TV a D-level streaming service. I'm going to read the names of some of the shows, original content from Apple TV that have been nominated and won Emmy Awards and are in the pantheon of quality programming, including For All Mankind, fantastic show. The Morning Show, which I do not watch, but has been nominated and won multiple awards. Foundation, not everyone's cup of tea, phenomenal storytelling. Severance, literally a show in the national zeitgeist. Slow Horses, with Gary Oldman playing a phenomenal spy chief who is old and cranky and smokes and farts on screen. What else? Silo with Idris Elba. What?
Ted Lasso.
I was going to get to Ted Lasso. The point I'm trying to make is Pluribus, who won Best Actress for Rhea Seehorn in the Emmys this year. The point I'm trying to make is, one man's feast is another man's famine. Different people like different things. The idea that someone may not be interested in watching Apple TV content is a personal choice. But nevertheless, the industry as a whole has determined that Apple TV is worthy.
I feel so put in my place.
Hold on. I'll defend Michael real quick.
Yes.
I'll give him an out right here.
Okay.
Michael meant to say D. What was your grade, Mike?
He said a D grade.
A D grade. He meant to say that it was a D grade based on their sports department. Now maybe that might change with F1 now coming into the fold, but with just MLS, it would get a D from me as well.
Nevertheless,
I got you, Mike.
Takes is what it's all about.
Man.
Takes is what it's all about. We've had a fantastic Seeing Red.
I hope that Apple check really comes in well, Mark.
Well, I mean, all I'll tell you is, I'm getting my Apple TV for free this year because it's digital. It's been a great episode. Thanks to Christian Arnold for stopping by, and we hope to have Christian on. We hope you enjoyed his appearance. We hope you stay warm and dry during the storm this week. We will be back soon enough, as we are only 4 weeks away from the start of the 2026 season. Michael and Dan, any closing thoughts?
Mike, go first.
I think that it's going to be a long season, for better or for worse. There are a lot of interesting pieces, and bullet baby, we're in for it.
All right, Dan.
I just want to plug something that I'm doing tomorrow. I will be having an exclusive interview with new Red Bull 2 coach Dominic Wohlert. I believe that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
So I'll be interviewing him tomorrow. That will be posted on my YouTube, Metro Energy Soccer. So if you guys want to tune in to hear what the new coach has to say for Red Bull 2, just come on by.
Phenomenal. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Seeing Red number 640. We'll be back soon as the preseason rolls on.